Hey guys, Nicole here from the Crocheting. I'm back with another crochet tutorial for one of my most popular patterns, the Loja Dress. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to make my best-selling crochet pattern, the Loja Dress, and I'll tell you what tools and materials you'll need in order to make this, and also how to determine which size you should be making. So I released this crochet pattern about a month ago, a little less than a month ago, and since then it has clearly become my most popular pattern. It has about 4 times as many orders as my second most popular pattern, the Lil Sweater. It became my most liked photo on Instagram by double the likes as my previously most liked photo on Instagram. And on my Depop, where I sell one-off finished pieces that I make when I'm designing crochet patterns, this dress in particular got more likes than all of my other posts on Depop, and a lot of requests for their own Loja dress in custom colors and sizes, that sort of thing. Definitely my most popular crochet pattern to date. I'm always trying to figure out what it is about my patterns that makes some more popular than others. So, I mean, if you guys have any idea why this one, for some reason, is so much more popular than my other patterns, please let me know. I'll try to make more designs that are also on the same level of popularity, what you guys are looking for in my future patterns. Today, I wanted to walk you through how to make your own Loja dress. I do actually sell this pattern in my shop, so you're technically going to be getting a free pattern right now from me explaining how to make this dress. So if you could, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. That would really mean a lot to me. I do spend a lot of time and thought and effort in designing patterns for you all to enjoy, so it would really mean a lot to me if you could show your support for what I'm doing with a subscribe or a like on this video. So today I'm going to be giving you instructions on how to make 6 different sizes ranging from extra small to extra large. If you're someone who prefers working with a written pattern, I do have this pattern along with over 100 of my other crochet designs for sale in my Etsy shop, The Crocheting, or on my website, thecrocheting.com. The dress I am going to be making today is actually for a Depop customer, and that's going to be in a size extra small. So those are the stitch counts that I'm going to be working with, but I'm putting the sizing directions in the description below. So once you pick out your size, you're going to look at how the numbers are set up here on the screen and find the number that corresponds to the size that you're making, and just follow that stitch count throughout the rest of the video. Don't look at any of the other numbers, they're just for the other sizes. You're going to just look at the number that corresponds to the size that you're about to make. Only focus on that one, don't worry about the other sizes. Also, depending on what size you're going to make, you're either going to need anywhere from 200 to 450 yards of each color that you're going to be using. I will put those specifications as well in the description so you can make sure that you have enough yarn before we're getting started. The only other materials that I would say you might need are a tapestry needle to assemble, and of course you'll need a 3.75mm F crochet hook. And if you want to test your gauge before getting started, you can make a square of about 10 stitches by 5 rows, and that should be a 3" by 3" square. If it's a little off, it's not too worrisome, but you just want to try to make sure you're getting somewhere around 3 inches for that. Now that you know what size you're making, how much yarn you're going to need, and that you have your tools with you, we can go ahead and get started making the dress. So you'll start by taking your category 4 yarn and your 3.75mm crochet hook here, make your slip knot, and then put it on your hook. You'll notice I'm using a dark green, and that is not the color of the dress, but the customer did request to use dark green, light green, and blue, so that is what we're going to use today. And so you'll just start making a chain of whichever size you need for your specific dress size. And let's see, I've done already 8, so you'll just go ahead and chain. You'll notice I'm doing slightly unconventional method of crocheting, so if you have to follow along, please bear with me on that. But if not, you can just go ahead and make that size chain, and I think I'll go ahead and do the rest off camera so you can see. You're just chaining. So I'll go ahead and make my chain, and then we'll come back and do round 1. So I'm back now with my chain. I'm making a size extra small, so I have a chain of 100 here. And then what you actually want to do is go ahead and make 2 extra chains. And this is going to count as our first double crochet stitch. So now I'm at 102, and then you're going to yarn over and turn so that you're facing the remaining chains. And you're going to count to the 4th chain away from your hook. And then you're going to just make a double crochet stitch inside that 4th chain. Just like that. So now you have 2 double crochet stitches. And what you want to do is just go ahead and double crochet in each chain across. Just demo one more. So you insert your hook into the chain, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over one more time and pull through the remaining 2 loops for your double crochet. So I think I'll go ahead again and complete the rest of these double crochet stitches off camera. So I'll meet you back when I have all 100 double crochet stitches made. All right, so I've gone ahead and made the 100 double crochet stitches, and I do quickly want to mention, if at any point during this process you find yourself getting a little confused watching me crochet, or you're not able to follow, you can just break away, pause the video, and go search a tutorial for how to do the double crochet stitch, for example, just to pick it up and get back on track. So with that, let's continue on. So you'll see here, we want to connect our long line into a tube to form the beginning of the dress. This is going to be the bottom, the lowest part of the dress. So what I like to do is I like to just find that 2nd chain of the first 2 extra chains that we're calling our first double crochet stitch, and I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch into the top of that stitch. So you'll see it's a little uneven here, but I'm going to go ahead and sew this at the end during assembly so that these are lined up properly. So you'll see I just slip stitched into the top of our first double crochet. Now we can begin the 2nd row. So to start every row, we're going to begin with a chain 2, and that's going to be our first double crochet in each of these stripes. We'll begin with a chain 2, and then of course to start a double crochet you'll yarn over, turn to face your next stitches, and you'll just put your hook through the top of the stitch and double crochet. So you'll just insert your hook, make a double crochet in each stitch around in here. Get some more yarn. Also, always a helpful tip to know where to insert. You'll see there's like a little hole right in here, and you just want to put your hook through there so you've got 2 loops at the top of the stitch, and that's where you want to insert your hook. So you're just going to go ahead and make a double crochet in each of these stitches around. You're still going to have the same number of stitches that you started with. For me, since I'm making the size extra small, I will have 100 double crochet stitches for 2 rounds of this green color. I'll also point out that each stripe is going to be 2 rounds in thickness. So when we are done with this round and when we reach our first double crochet, we're going to end up switching to a different color to create the next stripe. So again, I think I'll take this off camera and I'll make the rest of these double crochets off camera and then come back and we'll start the next stripe. So once you arrive back at your first stitch of the round, you're just going to find that second chain in your chain 2 that counts as your first stitch, slip stitch into it, and then close the round. So once you've gone and made 2 rows of this green color or whichever color you're using as your color 1, you can cut your yarn and then fasten off like that. So now you're going to switch to your second color, which I'm going to be using a baby blue. And to change colors, you'll do the same thing as before. You'll just make a slip stitch on your hook, and then you can pick really any point on your second round and just slip stitch into it. I'm going to just try a few stitches over. And what I like to do is move the little ends here in the same direction as I'm working so that the ends will naturally fall underneath all of the stitches and I can hide them away that way. Or you can choose to weave them all in at the end. That is what I usually recommend because it is easier to not worry about the ends while you're working, but you can do whichever thing you prefer. So you'll start again with a chain 2 and yarn over and double crochet into the next stitch from your hook. Yarn over, double crochet into the next stitch, yarn over, and double crochet. And so you can see the ends of the yarn are kind of hiding right here underneath, which is a good thing. You want to hide your ends. And so there's really nothing different about this round 3 versus round 2. It's really just going to be double crocheting in each stitch around until you reach your first chain 2. So I think again, I'll take this off camera, I'll make a double crochet in each stitch around, and then we'll move to round 4. Okay, so now that you've arrived back at your first stitch, we're going to just end the round as we've been doing with a slip stitch into that first stitch, which is the second chain of the chain 2 that you started the round with, like that. And now to begin round 4, you're simply going to chain 2 again, and this will count as your first stitch. And then you're going to double crochet in the next stitch from your hook and in each stitch around until you arrive back at your first stitch. Alright, so now we've arrived back at our first stitch. We're going to slip stitch into it to close this round. And now we're going to fasten off since we've made 2 rows of this baby blue color. And now the third color I'm using is a sage green. And we're going to make our slip knot and fasten in really anywhere on this most recent round. Begin with our chain 2 and then resume the double crochets in each stitch around. Now this stripe is worked exactly the same as the baby blue stripe. You're just going to make a double crochet in each stitch around for a total of 2 rounds, making sure to slip stitch into your first stitch to end the round and begin each round with a chain 2. Now after this round, we'll have one more round in this light green color, and then we'll move into making rounds with increases in order to give the dress some room for when it moves up towards your hips, which will be the widest part of the dress. So I'm going to go ahead and make this round and the next round, and then we'll move into the 4th stripe, which will be again with the dark green color. So I'm going to go ahead and make this round, which is going to be our round 5, and then I'm going to make round 6, and we'll pick back up with round 7 using the dark green color. Okay, so now you should have 3 stripes, each 2 rounds thick, one of each color that you're going to be using. So I've gone ahead and fastened off here from this most recent round, and now I'm going to slip stitch into any stitch and then chain 2 to get started with round 7 using the dark green color. And now I'm going to continue to double crochet around, except now I'm going to keep track of how many stitches I'm making. And when I arrive at the halfway point, for me that's going to be when I've made 50 stitches, because I'm currently working with 100 stitches in this round. So for you that could be 100, or it could be 50 rather, if you're making a size extra small like me and working with 100 stitches. But you can just divide your total number of stitches by 2 to get your halfway point. And once you arrive at that halfway point, you're going to just make an increase. So I'm going to count to 50 stitches. Okay, so I'm arriving at the 50th stitch, which for me is the halfway point. And you can see, if you stretch it out, it should be about half of your work, just to make sure, or you can count again just to confirm. But I know this is 50 stitches for me out of 100 stitches total. And then once you're at this point, you're going to want to just insert your hook back into the same stitch as the 50th stitch was made, and just make one more double crochet stitch in that spot. So that will be your increase. So now you've just added a stitch, so I'm at 101 stitches total. For you, it's going to be whatever you were working with plus 1. And I'm also going to actually go ahead and put a stitch marker on here. This is completely optional. You don't have to use stitch markers, but this way, when I'm coming back around to this spot, I won't need to count. I'll know that that is where 50 stitches, now 51 stitches is at, because next round I'm going to want to increase one more time in this spot. And actually for quite a few rounds, there's going to be increases at this part in the pattern as well as in the very last stitch. So now I'm just going to continue to double crochet in each stitch around, and when I arrive back at the first stitch, instead of just going ahead and closing the round, I'm going to actually make a double crochet increase in the very last stitch and then close the round. So 2 increases total in this round, 1 at the halfway point and 1 at the very end. For now, a total of 102 stitches. I started with 100, so your new stitch count is going to be whatever you were working with originally plus 2. Okay, so now that we're at the last stitch of the round, we're going to make another double crochet increase. So that's 1, and then 1 more in that same stitch. So there. And now you'll end the round by slip stitching into the first stitch of the round, just like that. And so we're going to begin round 8 with a chain 2 as always, and then we're going to make 2 increases again. One is going to be in this very last stitch. Once we arrive back at this stitch, we're going to make an increase in the last stitch again. We're also going to increase in this stitch here that we've stitch marked. So I'm going to go ahead and get us to that stitch mark stitch. So we are approaching our stitch marked stitch. So that would be this one right here. So I'm just going to make 1 double crochet, and then I'm going to increase in that stitch. And so if you want, what you can do is you can actually move your stitch marker up with each increase so that you don't lose your place. And if you don't have these stitch markers or ones that are meant to be stitch markers, another thing you can do is just take a piece of yarn and just kind of pull it through and tie it around the stitch loosely. And be sure it's loose so that you can remove it with each round. So now that we've increased, we're going to go all the way around and make 1 last increase in the last stitch of the round to end the round. So what we're actually going to be doing off camera, I'm going to do this, so make sure you're getting this part done before moving on, is I'm going to make 3 more stripes, which is a total of 6 rounds, and I'm going to do that 1 of each color, and those 3 stripes are going to be made exactly like this dark green stripe was made, with an increase at the midway point of the round and an increase at the end of the round. So right now, at the end of this round, I'm going to be working on 104 stitches, and I started with 100 stitches. So I'll be ending this round with a total of 4 extra stitches than I started with. And so for you, that could be whatever number you started with plus 4, and then we're going to make 3 more stripes, which is going to give us an extra that's an extra 12 stitches on top of the 4 we've already added. So for me, I'll be coming back from this stitch, or from this round rather, with 116 stitches, originally 100. So when you make the extra 3 stripes, you will also have 16 more stitches total than your original stitch count. And so those 3 stripes are going to be made 2 rounds thick each, and you're going to do exactly what we did for this stripe, which is just 2 increases total in the round, 1 at the midway point of the round where you've been stitch marking, and 1 at the very end of the round. You're also welcome to stitch mark this last stitch so that you remember to put your increase here. I personally don't stitch mark it just because it's pretty obvious which one is the last stitch, because this is where the round began, so this is clearly the very last stitch. But if you would like to stitch mark as a reminder to put that increase there, you're welcome to do that. So we've just finished this round basically. We're at the very last stitch, and we're just gonna place that increase in the very last stitch. So here's your first stitch, and now the increase into the same stitch right there, and then I'll slip stitch and close the round. And then you can fasten off. I'm going to go ahead and make those 3 stripes, doing the same process of increasing at the end and increasing at the midpoint. So I'll come back to you with 3 more stripes. Okay, so just to recap where we are right now, we've made a total of 14 rounds, so 7 stripes total. And then we've made a total of 8 rounds of increasing, which is really just adding 2 stitches to each round. So because I began at 100 stitches, I'm now at 116 stitches to begin round 15. So this round's gonna begin just as we've started every round, slip stitching into a stitch and then chaining 2. And then I'm going to do 1 more round of increasing. So I'm gonna double crochet in each stitch until I reach my stitch marked stitch, which is the increasing stitch, which is also the midpoint of the round. And then once I arrive at that stitch, I'll do 1 more increase, come around, end with an increase in the very last stitch, and then end that round. So if you want to skip ahead, the only reason this stripe is different than the other stripes is round 1 of the stripe, which is our round 15, which is what I'm doing right now. This is an increase round. The next round in this light blue color is not going to be an increase round. So we're gonna actually stick with this number of stitches for a couple of rounds. So for me, that's 118. It's gonna be whatever number you started with plus 18. So if you started with 100 like me, you'll also be working on 118 stitches for a few rounds after this. So I'll go ahead and make this stripe off camera. So what you're going to want to do is continue every round like you've been doing. When you arrive at stitch mark stitch, you're going to make another increase into that stitch. And then when you arrive back at this stitch, your first stitch, you're going to make an increase in the very last stitch, close the round, and then do 1 more round. So round 16 will be in this baby blue color, except no increasing. So when you arrive back at your stitch marked stitch for round 16, you're actually not going to increase. You're just going to make a double crochet in each stitch around, close the round, kind of how rounds 1 through I believe 8 were. These earlier rounds, they were just double crochets around. So that's what you're gonna do for the second round of this stripe. Because remember, each stripe is made of 2 rounds. So I'm gonna come back to you with my baby blue stripe done, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so I just finished with the light blue stripe. So as you can see, I did not increase in the last stitch like we've been doing, nor did I increase in the midpoint stitch like we've also been doing. So we're going to now make 3 more stripes. So for me, that's 1 light green stripe, 1 dark green stripe, 1 baby blue stripe, and those stripes are going to just be working 1 double crochet in each stitch around. So nothing to it. We're just gonna go ahead and do our chain 2 and double crochet in each stitch around. So I'm gonna go ahead, make 3 more stripes, double crocheting in each stitch around. and then I'll come back and we'll get started on the 4th stripe, which is going to be a bit different. Okay, so now I'm about to show you the round that you're going to repeat for a total of 14 stripes. So we're going to start with the light green yarn, and then we're going to make this first round, and then we won't stop repeating this round until we have a total of 14 stripes made. So you're going to be doing this for a while, just remembering to obviously switch colors after you have you know, made 2 rounds in the same color, because that's how you're going to change to a different color for the next stripe. So we're going to begin this round as we've been doing with chain 2, and then that counts as your first stitch, and then you're going to double crochet until you reach the midpoint. Hopefully you've still been moving your stitch marker. If not, go ahead and move your stitch marker up to the midpoint stitch. So you're still going to be double crocheting in each stitch around until you get to the midpoint, just as we've been doing. Okay, so I'm at the midpoint now, so I've actually stopped 1 stitch before I've reached the midpoint, and the reason for this is because I'm going to double crochet decrease. So what that means is you're combining these 2 stitches here. So I'm taking the first loop from the stitch right next to the midpoint and the second loop of the midpoint stitch, and I'm using those to work the double crochet. So now I've just made 1 stitch from 2 stitches. So that's a double crochet decrease. If you need to look up another tutorial for a double crochet decrease with more detail, I am confident that you will be able to find one and help you through it that way, or you could just rewatch what I just demoed there. So as you can tell, a decrease means we're going to be losing stitches. So after the end of this round, I'm going to end up at 116 double crochet stitches, whereas I started with 118. So where I'm starting with 118 stitches, I'm actually going to end up at 90. So I'm losing a total of 28 stitches from now until the very last round of these decrease rounds. So for you, that's going to be whatever number you are starting this round at. For me, it was 118 because I'm making a size extra small. You're going to be decreasing by 28 stitches. So if you subtract 28 from whatever number you made this last blue round with, that's going to be your ending stitch count. Okay, so I'm going to come back when I have my 14 stripes made, and just to remind you all, you're going to do that decrease again with these last 2 stitches. You're going to combine them into 1 and then slip stitch in here to close the round. So don't forget to be decreasing here and decreasing at your midpoint. Always do that. Make your decreases one on top of the other. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've made my 7 stripes, which I apologize earlier for saying 14, but it really is 7 stripes with the decreasing rounds. And so now we're gonna go ahead and make the final 3 rounds of the dress body. So this round that I'm gonna do is going to be the same for the next 2 rounds. So you'll repeat this 3 times, once in each color. So 1 dark green round, 1 light blue round, and 1 sage green round. So we're gonna go ahead, chain 2 to start the round, and then double crochet around. So just like we've been doing, double crochet in each stitch. However, you'll remember that since I'm now at 90 stitches, I want to get down to 86 stitches by the end of this round. So where I've been decreasing at the midway point and decreasing at the end, I'm now going to be decreasing a total of 4 times, once every quarter of the round. So we will still be decreasing at the midpoint and at the end. However, this time we're going to be spacing out 2 more decreases in between those 2 so that they're all evenly spaced out. Now for me, because 90 doesn't divide by 4 evenly, it actually divides to 22.5. I've spaced my decreases out so one happens 22 stitches from the beginning, and then the next decrease is 23 stitches after that, and then 22, and then 23, so that you still end up with a fairly even spacing between your decreases. But obviously if yours divides evenly by 4, that's better off, but it's not going to affect the design too much. So I have already marked right here, this is going to be my first decrease. I believe this is 23 stitches in, which is about 1/4 of 90. So I'm going to go ahead and decrease, which as you can see, 2 have become 1, and then gonna turn around, getting to be a lot bigger than before, so certainly harder to work on, but we want to see that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and decrease, or sorry, double crochet, and then decrease again when I reach the halfway point. So this will bring me to 86 stitches, which is really just 4 less than the previous round. For you, it's gonna be 4 less than your previous round. So we're losing 4 stitches in the next 2 rounds as well, which will bring us, me at least, to a total of 78, because 90 minus 12. For you, it'll just be 12 less than whatever your most recent round this round was. So once you finish this round, you'll switch colors, whereas before we've been making each round 2 inches thick, or 2 rounds thick, sorry. Now we're gonna have 1 round thick stripes, just for the very end to give a little extra flair to the dress. And we're making it a lot narrower as we're getting closer to the top, so this is probably going to rest directly underneath the bust, so this is going to be the smallest part of the dress. So now that we're at the midpoint, which I've spaced out 22 stitches, we add another decrease. And of course, if you forget how to decrease, which I hope by now you've mastered, but if at any point you want to see a closer idea of how to do this decrease, do some of these stitches, there are definitely videos on YouTube aside from this one to show you the more basics on how to make these happen. But I'm gonna go ahead, decrease at the 3rd point of the round as well as the end to bring me to a total of 4 decreases. And then I'm gonna go and make the light blue and sage green stripes, doing this exact same process of decreasing 4 times evenly spaced out in the round. And then I'll meet you back here. So the cups actually begin the same way for every single size with a chain of 22. So I've gone ahead and done that here. And then what you want to do is just chain an extra 2, which will count as your first double crochet. And then you're going to want to double crochet in the 4th chain from your hook, like so. And then you're going to double crochet across so that you end with 22 double crochets. However, that is not going to be the end of round 1. So the way that the cups work is actually pretty simple. After round 1, which we're doing right here in the baby blue, all of the rounds are actually going to be the same, just repeated over and over. So round 2, we're just gonna repeat several times, switching the colors each time. And then if you actually want to make a larger cup size, if you are making a size XL and XXL, whatever it might be, maybe you just want an extra security and you want to go up a size. This is pretty standard for every size, the way that it's set up, but you are welcome to just repeat round 2 1 or 2 more times until you make a size that you are happy with. It's really up to you. And likewise, if you want to go down a size and make a slightly smaller cup, you can actually stop early the repeating of round 2. But if you want to do it the way that I have it set up in the pattern, then feel free to continue along with me and repeat it as many times as I'm going to do. So here we're coming up to the end. So we're gonna do 1 more double crochet in the last chain. But now what we're actually gonna do is add 5 double crochets to this last chain here. So we're gonna do 1, and I'm gonna try to open it up a little more. Give it some room. Probably should have done that to start, but that's okay. Okay, that's 2. 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so now you could see we have 6 in this last chain here, which, if you could tell, it's kind of veering over to this end. So we're gonna actually follow that path down and start to double crochet underneath each of our double crochets that we just made. So we're just gonna double crochet across this bottom side of the chains here, in each one across. As you can see, I'm tucking that end in as I go. This really will help me in the end. I won't have as much to weave in, so that's why I like to do that. But I know a lot of you prefer to just kind of do all of that at the very end. Perfectly fine to do it either way. Okay, so as you can see, I've kind of skipped ahead a little bit with round 2, but where I started, I just slip stitch into the corner here and chain 2 to count as my first double crochet. And then I worked all the way down the line, and I'm approaching the middle of the cup right here where we made those 6 double crochets into that chain and then began to work on the other side. Sorry, that's my dog. So you come over here and you're gonna just find the middle stitch. So that for me is gonna be right here. And you're going to make 5 double crochets into that stitch. So that is going to be the middle of the cup. Okay, I've made 4, so I need 1 more for 5. And then you're just gonna double crochet around, and it's that easy. When you come back around, you're gonna switch to, for me, it's gonna be the dark green. For you, it could be whatever color you're using to represent dark green here. You're gonna come back around in the dark green, and you're also going to find that middle stitch and make 5 double crochets in the middle stitch. And you're gonna repeat that. If you're making it exactly the way that I have it set up in the pattern, you're gonna be doing that process until you have a total of 8 color changes. That includes this baby blue in the middle and this light green. So that would be 8 total color changes. So that would mean for me ending on light sage color. This light green that I'm working with right now, I would end with it. And for you, it will be whatever color you're using at the moment as well. Will be your last stripe. If you want to make a bigger, smaller cup, it's gonna be a little different. Totally up to you, how you wanna do it. But if you're working the way I am, we're gonna come back and show you how to make the strap once you've made a total of 8 color changes. Should be at the end of your round 8 as well if you're counting rounds. And then we'll go ahead and make the strap, which will help us finalize the dress. I should also note you're gonna be making 2 cups, 2 straps, 2 of everything. So this process is gonna get repeated. I'm not gonna show you it twice, but just so you know, you're gonna be making 2 cups. All right, I'll come back when I have 8 color changes. So this is what your finished cup should look like, laid out flat. This is 8 different color changes and ending with the light green color. And I've gone ahead and fastened off here, leaving a long tail for sewing. As you can see, I've already made the 2nd cup and sewed that on. So what you wanna do is find the midpoint of the dress. So this is where you've been doing most of your increasing or decreasing, laid out on either end, meaning the midpoint would be right in the middle here. And then you wanna start sewing right at that midpoint all the way around until you reach the other side of the cup. So when you finish sewing, both cups should line up like this, with them being sewn, started at the midpoint all the way around. Next, we're gonna finish by making the last 2 straps here, and then I'm gonna show you where to sew them, and then we're gonna be done. So to begin the top strap, which you're gonna be making 2 of, you're gonna start with a chain of 56, and then if you want a longer strap, you can obviously start with a longer chain, but 56 is pretty standard for every size. So here we've got a chain of 56 already made, and now that actually is 55 plus 1 chain. That's gonna count as our first single crochet. And so then you're just gonna single crochet in the 3rd chain from your hook, and then in each chain across. So you're gonna end with a total of 55 single crochets. So I'm gonna go ahead and make those off camera and come back to you with 55 single crochets. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made 55 single crochets using the dark green color, and I've just switched here to the baby blue and chained 1, which is gonna count as my first single crochet of the round. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and begin to single crochet, just regular single crochet in each stitch around. So again, if you don't know the single crochet, I know for a fact that there are tons of helpful tutorials out there for how to do it. If you want to see me demo one really quick, you're just going to insert your hook without yarning over. Then you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and then pull through both of those loops. So that's just a single crochet. But again, there are a lot of helpful tutorials out there that I would refer you to if you need to see it done slower. So we're really just gonna single crochet across. So now that I've reached the end of the row, what I'm actually gonna do now is turn to the side of this last single crochet, and I'm actually going to work 1 single crochet into the side of that stitch, and then as well as 1 single crochet underneath that stitch. So now I can basically start to single crochet underneath all of those stitches. Similar to how the cup was made, if you'll remember, the first round of the cup involved double crocheting underneath all of the initial chains. Right now we're just going to be single crocheting underneath all of the round 1 single crochets. So very similar in style, and you're just going to want to do that across, and then you're going to switch to the last remaining color, the sage green color, to make the 3rd and final round. So to make the final round of the strap, I've gone ahead and switched to the light green, and I've chained 1, which will count as my first single crochet of the round. And now I'm just going to place 1 more single crochet in the next stitch, and then I'm actually going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And I'm sure you can guess where this is going. Double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So what you're gonna do is repeat that across around the entire strap. So 2 double crochets and then 2 single crochets, no increasing, no decreasing, just switch between 2 double crochets in the next 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the next 2 stitches. So you might not end on a perfect number, but that's what you're gonna repeat across. So as you can see, it's doing a slight little bump here, nothing crazy, just gonna give it a little bit of an edge, which will be nice to have in the final product. And once you go around the entire strap, doing this 2 double crochet, 2 single crochet, you're gonna want to cut your yarn and leave a tail to sew the strap to your dress. So here's the finished strap, and I've gone and cut a tail for sewing. And how you're gonna wanna assemble is taking the tip of the cup and finding that increase 5 from the last round of the cup. So that's gonna be right here. And then you're gonna start sewing 1 stitch over and then end 1 stitch over. So you're gonna use up 7 stitches total to sew, and you're just gonna line it up as best you can to evenly space the strap out between those 7 stitches. And then you're gonna weave in all your ends and then repeat the whole process for the strap on the other side of the dress with the other cup. And then go ahead and weave in all ends and you'll have your finished dress. Here's the finished dress, all assembled and put together. Super happy with the way it turned out. I think these colors were really a great pick by the customer in Depop, and I'm super excited to send it to her. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions about today's pattern, feel free to leave me a comment down below or message me on Instagram at crocheting or shoot me an email. And I will put the links to my website, my Etsy shop, and every other page that I'm on in the description for you to check out. If you guys did make this dress, I would love to see it. So if you can tag me on Instagram or Twitter or any of my social handles that I'll link in the description, I would really love to see how your guys' dresses turned out. And please, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. Your support really means everything to me. So if you did enjoy, please share the love down below. Thank you guys so much. Bye.